it really comes down to believing in yourself, believing in God. Like, if you don't have that drive for something, you'll realize it pretty quick. And God will tell you that, hey, I need to step back, see if this is something something that I should pursue. And I think for me, it was just the connection to the childhood story, the connection to the values that it taught me. And over time, I can't stop thinking about it.
I believe every single person has a ministry. Ministry isn't just for preachers and it's not just for pastors. It's the way you shine the light that God gave you through His Spirit in all spaces that He's trusted you to walk. That means you on your college campus. That means you at your corporate job. That means you in high school. That means you with your friends at the bar or the restaurant. That means you wherever you are. You have the responsibility to shine God's light in that space, and you get the chance to. Friend, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are made to shine. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Made to Shine show. As you just heard in that amazing introduction, we have the phenomenal, impressive, doing such amazing things for the kingdom, Mitch Thiem on with us today. Mitch, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So excited to have you on. I know you're in Florida. My listeners know I love Florida. It's like one of my favorite places in the world. So excited that you're tuning in from Florida today. And as everyone on the show knows, the mission is to remind people everybody has a ministry. It's not just for preachers and pastors. It's literally the way you shine God's light in your heart in every single space that He's trusted you with. And from afar, I've seen you do that from just the way you're conducting your business and this application that you're launching and the way that you shine God's light, whether it's, you mentioned speaking with so many schools this morning, like doing that, just trusting for God to provide His light in your heart as you continue to go in all the spaces He's requiring you to go. And so excited to have you on, dive into all the things. But Mitch, before we do, we got to kick this off the way I kick off every episode, which is, what is your favorite quote and why?
Yeah, so my favorite quote is Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. So that one really sticks with me, especially as an entrepreneur. And as a person who's diagnosed with dyslexia when I was a young age. Really, if you don't ask, you won't get. My parents kind of instilled that in me. And one must be really persistent and have perseverance in life, not only in life, but also in business, to achieve their dreams. First, aspire. I always say you have to aspire, and then you have to, with aspiring and setting goals, you can achieve those dreams. And I think that verse really connects with kind of my whole mission and the team at Chores to really just get out there and be an entrepreneur and take that step forward, and don't be afraid to fail. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. So you might as well ask.
That is so my younger sister has dyslexia. And it's funny because when we were kind of doing the prep before this, and I read that, I remember Lizzie growing up, like there was a time period where, and whether it's like for her, maybe for you at one point it was dyslexia, but for other people, we all have that thing that maybe would make us scared to ask, think we're not worthy of asking, or like we can't ask. So I'm curious for you, was there ever like a time in your life where there was fear, whether it was around that or something else, that said like, I don't know if I can ask. I don't know if I'm good enough to ask. Or were you always someone that just right off the bat was like, no, I'm asking, like we're going. If I want it, I'm going to ask for it. I automatically know it's going to be a no if I don't ask.
Yeah, I think in second grade when I got diagnosed, a big thing that my parents, I think they're the ones who kind of instilled it in me, were like, you know that some of the most creative and thoughtful and accomplished people in the world are diagnosed with dyslexia. So the first thing I did when I heard that was I looked up successful people that were diagnosed with dyslexia. And one of them was Albert Einstein, which is kind of where we pulled our logo from, E equals MC money sign instead of E equals MC squared. So it's entrepreneurs start with minor chores. So the younger you start, it kind of ties into the whole brand MC money. But I think the big hurdle for me was getting outside my comfort zone, being kind of scared to ask the question is a good thing in times. Like I was in a small class, I got put in a class in high school called Basic Skills, where we just basically learned how we learned best. Because I didn't learn the same way that other kids learn.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to spend a lot more time reading. I learned that, hey, I'm way better at reading when I'm listening and actually reading the words. So now I use AI tools like Speechify that reads it out loud to me, and then I can better comprehend and understand. But in the general sense, like school, for the most part, I wasn't really scared of asking questions. A dumb question, whatever. They might make fun of you, but there's probably a few kids in the classroom that are learning from or have that same question. So never be afraid and ask.
That's so good. And I think too, like in the process of just, and I want to get into minor chores for sure. But like the process of creating, like you ended up creating this amazing application that's helping so many people. It's going to help so many people and young kids. It was like first the willingness to say, this is something that I do have. Like it's the awareness of this is real and like taking that in and then figuring out and navigating the path. Like because of this, how can it be a superpower? Like how can I use it? How can I figure out who else has done amazing things with kind of similar parameters? And I think that's so powerful because so many times like the Bible talks about the power of confession, just like saying things out loud and in nature to sin. But I think in regards to all things, it's like when you actually confess, this is me, this is something I have, this is something I do, this is an experience that I have. Then you can bring it to light and find the other people that can relate. And it can be this like force for good. And, you know, like we're all so unique. God made us as unique as the prints on our fingers. And I just think it's like, it's your story, how beautiful it is, how unique it is, that's been able for you to do what you're doing right now. And let's say, had you like not had that experience or looked into it, you wouldn't be blessing the world the way you are right now, which is so powerful. Like for people to take responsibility and like look at what God's actually given them. I think about like Moses, like I can't do this. And God's like, what do you have? And so I love that. And I wanted to get into minor chores because it's so powerful. The mission is amazing. So I think first, before we get into the itty gritty of like the process of building it, what is it? So listeners have some context.
Yeah, it's really a business inspired by my childhood. So when I was 10 years old, I've got an older brother, 18 months older than me. We were all at a vacation up in our grandparents' place with our cousins, and we're like, Dad, we want to make money, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, get a job. We're not old enough to get a job. I'm only 10 years old at the time. He's like, well, start a business, call it Poop Patrol Incorporated, make every step a good one. So from there, we went from sitting on the couch playing video games, which I didn't even like video games because I didn't win and I'm very competitive. So I was like, all right, well, I'll quit the video game crap. And we made marketing flyers. My dad actually made a whole presentation that I still have. And we made these marketing flyers with pictures of poop on it, our parents' phone numbers, and we went around the neighborhood and started acquiring customers with the marketing flyers and picking up dog poop and making $5 to $10 in 5 to 10 minutes, and then evolved into washing trash cans, walking dogs, mowing lawns, doing all these neighborhood minor chores. And as I got older, I continued to mow lawns and do those things even in college because it was such a high paying like side hustle that I was like, why not do it? I can still have an internship and do other things. But after college, after moving down here, long story short, I was just working for a new solar company and I was using Rover, the dog walking app. And I was like, well, this is interesting. I still am shocked that there's no app for kids to make money. Kids can start businesses at whatever age they want, but there has to be parental oversight. So when I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, there's Netflix, there's parental controls. We can add parental controls to an app. Yeah. We just don't have to take money from the kids. We can make it a subscription where the parents pay to use the platform so they can safely oversee their kids' businesses. Back in the day, I was running around the neighborhood. My parents didn't really know who I was working for or what I was doing.
They're like, oh, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, just go run around the neighborhood. Today's a little bit different, and parents like to understand exactly who their kids are working for. So really the application is like your TaskRabbit, your Rover, your Uber, but for all sorts of neighborhood chores, and parents just pay to use the platform. And then kids can get marketing flyers. We're even giving away free business cards that have their QR code to their profile.
Wow.
So they can use those in their neighborhood to acquire customers, and then they get to keep 100% of all the money they make. So that's a high level story behind it. And then,
So
the
cool.
product is very interesting. Yeah.
So, okay. I'm curious, like, what time was the genesis of this idea? And like, when I say that, like, did you have this idea? Was it just something you observed and then just kind of let it sit for a while? Or was it like right off the bat, boom, this needs to happen, and you automatically took action?
Great question. So I always had Poop Patrol on my resume, even as an adult, because I
I
started when I
know
was 10.
employers love that. I know they.
Yes. And every single employer was like, what is Poop Patrol? Like, make every step a good one. That is hilarious. So I
Yeah.
would tell them, and I'm like, yeah. Well, I would tell them about the business that I ran, all the neighborhood businesses that I did with my brother and my sister. And at one point when I went to work, this was in like, was it May of 2022, I went to work for a new company, and I was up in Pennsylvania talking about it. And at the top of the slide, I said, Poop Patrol, make every step a good one. Everyone laughed. And I'm like, I made like 30 to 60 bucks an hour doing neighborhood chores. And out of the blue, I just kind of said, yeah, eventually I want to create an app that teaches kids how to make money. And that's kind of when it clicked.
Wow.
And I think that day I called my sister and I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job. And she's
Wow.
like, you're nuts. You're nuts. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I think I'm going to quit my job. And she's like, well, think about it. And I waited a month and then I quit my job, and I bought the domain name and figured out kind of the business model and didn't know what I was doing. I never developed an app. I was in the solar energy field and renewable energy, but I had buddies that had out of college, and I knew some people that worked for accelerators or for tech companies. So I just started asking people. And if you bring good energy and you have good connections and you know the right people, people are willing to help people. That's the great thing about the world we live in and
Yeah.
the earth that God created. And if you're out there doing the right thing and hustling, you'll find ways.
That's so good. That's true. But you
So,
also have to be willing to say you need help, which a lot of people
right.
are willing to do. You know what I mean? It's like they want to be seen as having it all together. I even think too, especially with because I mean, gosh, I think we're kindred spirits and that we're both like entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that have all these ideas God put on their heart, but it's not necessarily the fear of failing. It's the fear of being seen failing. Like not the fear of starting small, but the fear of being seen starting small by other people that completely prevents them from getting in the game. And I'm curious for you as a person of faith, like, so you said that you called your sister, and then there was about a month interim between like calling your sister and then actually quitting the job. What did your prayer sound like in that time period? Like, how did you know that that was the thing God was really nudging you to do? Because I feel like that's where people get stuck.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my dreams, like, I think he was talking to me kind of in my dreams sometimes. And I would just have these dreams of this could be huge. Like, it could really change a lot of lives and make lives better. Like, just in my childhood, I made over 50 grand, like doing side hustles and doing all these neighborhood businesses and praying and just kind of seeking guidance. I just believed in it. I had unconditional confidence, which is kind of scary, but also a great thing. And I just said, why not? Why not now? Like, I have passive income. I'd saved up a lot of money from the neighborhood businesses. I'd bought a house in 2020. I invested in my buddy's startup that was in real estate when he turned down $200K a year to come work at NextEra.
Wow.
There was a lot of things like just investing in that, bringing in dividends. I knew people in the golf industry down here, so I ended up getting a caddy job. I had other side hustles. I even used Rover and TaskRabbit and Uber and Lyft just to learn about their platform. So you just kind of figure it out as you go. And that month period was scary. Especially after I quit, I was actually going to stay on as a contractor. And the last day they were like, nah, you know what? We're going to keep the girl that you actually recruited over from NextEra. We're going to keep her on board and you're out. So that weekend I was like, okay, let's get started. I went out and hosted dog wash stations for free at the beach. So I'd wash dogs. I just had people take surveys, ask the strangers for a quick survey on my business. And once I started getting the feedback and people kind of surrounding around the idea saying it's a great idea, I love it, I didn't know exactly how I was going to build it all. I didn't have anything really planned out. I was just like, all right, this is how entrepreneurs get started. You just got to go get customer feedback first.
That's
Just
so
get out there.
good. I always think too, people love to overcomplicate things. You know what I mean? And even when it comes to just whether it's pursuing like a friendship or a degree or a new job or starting a business or wanting to move, whatever have you, we like to have the entire picture before we take the first step. And even God's like, my word is a lamp unto your feet. It's one step at a time. And I remember like I've created a few businesses, but like my first business I created when I was 18, it was a network marketing business. It's like, I have no idea how this is going to work. But I love the idea of passive income. And I really wanted to build it. And I knew if I worked my butt off from 18 to like 25 at 26, which I am now, this could be a full functioning, like, couple figures a year income for me that would give me options. And that's what I saw. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just took the next step and I called up my best friend. And like, but I think it's like, will you be faithful to this step? Not like, because I think sometimes you're like, okay, God, I'll be faithful to this if you tell me what my ROI is. If you tell me what the return on investment is going to be, I am more than happy to put my stamp on approval on this. It's like, that's not how it works. Because especially sometimes the ROI isn't money, it's character. It's like, it's not a monetary ROI, it's experience, it's relationships. And that's something that you can't even put a price on right off the bat.
That actually like just gave me the chills because
really?
Yes, there is a significant ROI from a monetary perspective with minor chores, but the bigger thing that I like to preach is like the character side and the discipline, the hard work, the determination, the ethical side of getting customers, like the character that you can build around just learning how to be your own boss from a parent perspective. Even though I'm just a dog dad, I see it in a lot of my friends are married and have kids, and I'm just, they all just eat it up. And I think that's even more important than the kids making money. I think the biggest thing for kids is to save that money. And then also just learn about the character skills, learn how to network with adults. In today's world with COVID happening in the past couple of years, like kids are shy. They're way shyer than they used to be. And I think giving them something that is a tech tool, but also a way for them to build those character skills is a special thing that I think parents will like.
So true. Even just learning how to advocate for yourself, like learning how to say, this is an idea that, God gave me that I have that I'm being faithful to carry out, and learning how to articulate that in a way that translates to other people, learning how to manage your time. I think if we learned how to budget our time like we budget our money, the world would be so different because we are just wasting time on so many things. I want to go there though. I want to go to like, what you maybe didn't anticipate to be the massive ROI from starting something like this that you found out now is like, wow, I wish. The reason I ask this, I like to think in terms of cost of inaction. Like, what's the cost of this thing not happening? What's the cost of this thing not? So minor chores, what's the cost to kids of them not experiencing something like minor chores to have in their life to teach them these skills that long term, when they're 25, 26, 27, we would probably see coming to fruition?
I think some of that is the struggle of living paycheck to paycheck. If kids can learn early on how to budget simply, like learning the basic skills, which I was in a class called Basic Skills that I talked about earlier, learning those basic skills will help the future generations not be a debt society. Like as a whole right now, majority of people are in debt or living paycheck to paycheck in order to pay their bills, pay off their gas every week or their rent. I think without it, there's definitely a ton of other ways to learn these types of characteristics and how to save and how to make money. But I think this is definitely an easy way for parents and kids to learn, and they can do it on their own. And I built it in a way that I would use it as a kid. I hate the fact that Uber and Lyft take 50% cuts. Like, so in general, I think the cause the cause and effect is just full circle for me. The fact that my parents instilled it in me, I just want to go back and instill it in others.
Yeah, I love
So
I even think too, something that's so powerful about um, learning how to run a business or learning how, because I look at us all as entrepreneurs, because at the end of the day, we're all running at least one business. It's the business of ourselves and the business of our lives. Like our lives are a business. Like they need to be managed. You need to figure out like, what are my inputs? What are my outputs? Like it's not always going to be super balanced. You need to know how to improve. You need to know where to pivot. There's people asking things of you in every angle. When you like, for me, I think one of the hardest things I learned early on is you can't let the highs get too high and the lows get too low, because you'll get taken out of the game real fast. And I think that, like even I've been in sales for so long, and in sales, it's like you can crush it and then you can do the same exact thing next month and then things just don't align. You translate that to life personally. Like you're going to have seasons where it's like you can't stop making friends. You can't stop people from wanting to hang out with you. And then you have seasons where
yeah,
it's like I'm available and no one, you know what I mean?
where are my friends?
Where are my friends? And so I'm curious for you, especially as someone of faith, like I think that takes so many people out of the game. How do you care about something so much and care about the success of it so much, but also detach from the outcome of it to where you're not making it your identity and you're still like a son of God, or in my case, like a daughter of God, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say the joy that it brings me isn't really tied to the overall success. Obviously, as a company, we want to be successful, but for example, today speaking at the elementary school I was at in Lake Worth, and just seeing the kids' eyes open up and ask for autographs, but yet we haven't made $1. We just launched like 2 weeks ago, and there's a 2-week subscription or free trial. And their eyes, and just the joy that it brings them that, hey, I can actually do this. I can make money, and I can go tell my parents today that I want to start a business. And that type of just interaction with kids, whether we're successful or not, if I inspire one kid and my business fails and I change that one kid's life, I did something good. And I think I've already done that, but that's kind of how I kind of detach myself away from the business, and how it still brings me joy, even if we fail or not, or we're successful. That's where it touches me emotionally to think about. If like my dad and mom were my inspirers behind the idea and Poop Patrol and the success that it brought me as a kid. But I hope I can help inspire the kids so they can tell their parents, and their parents can help kind of instill those same values.
Oh my gosh, that made me think of I was actually talking with someone on a podcast earlier this week about kind of the same idea. It's like, will you be faithful to the one? Like, even if everything you do for decades on end is just for one person, will you still be faithful to that? And that's what Jesus did. You know, like Jesus spoke to crowds of, 5,000 or 3,000 or 7,000, but then he also, when Jairus' daughter was dying and the woman who with the internal bleeding turned to him, he went and found her to look at her face and say, my daughter, you are healed. And I love, like in scripture, that's the only time he calls somebody daughter, because he knew her heart healing was worth so much more than her internal bleeding healing. And it's like, will you be faithful to the one? Do you know what I mean? And I think that everything you said, I think when you can fall in love with the process of doing something, outcomes come by default. Like John Maxwell says, if you go outside and take an axe and once a day hit that axe on a tree, eventually the tree's going to fall down. Like it just will.
Right.
But will you be faithful to showing up once a day and just continue to show up? So I think that's so powerful. Another thing I was curious about, because with people that create awesome things, it's just so fascinating for me to think God is the ultimate creator. He created the entire universe in 7 days. You know what I mean? Well, 6 days. But what has this process of creation for you? Like the process of having the idea, the process of finding a rhythm to build it out. What has it taught you about God? And what has it taught you about yourself as a son of God?
Really believe, like, it really comes down to believing in yourself, believing in God. Like, if you don't have that drive for something, you'll realize it pretty quick. And God will tell you that, hey, I need to step back, see if this is something something that I should pursue. And I think for me, it was just the connection to the childhood story, the connection to the values that it taught me. And over time, I can't stop thinking about it. And
Yeah.
it's something that I love to do day in, day out. And it's just brings so much joy that it's hard to put into words, to say the least. I think, yeah, going back to the childhood and just the fact that so many people in the world today are entrepreneurs or have side hustles, like this is just an easy way to do it for your kids, and it's a better way for everyone. Like everyone wins with this type of business model. So I just want to like do everything in my power to teach kids and have God guide me along the way so that I know what I'm doing is done right. We're proactively doing everything in our abilities to overcome any hiccups along the way. There's just so much in my mind around this idea, aside from just minor chores, launching other apps under the MC umbrella, the E equals MC money umbrella, that I just know he keeps pulling me in that direction. You know, it's like, I can't stop. It's like an addiction in a way.
Yeah.
Because I think God put me on this earth to change the way that kids learn about entrepreneurship and business. It's not taught in school, and it's one of the most important things in life that you need to learn about, aside from just following your dreams and believing in God, believing in faith, and treating people the way you want to be treated. You need to learn how to operate your own budget. And in a way, that's basically operating a small business. So, yeah, I think that's what God put me here for.
Everything you just said, I was thinking about this idea of pre-decision. So Craig Groeschel, do you know who Craig Groeschel is? He's
Sounds
awesome.
familiar. Yeah.
He's a preacher of Life Church. I don't know where there's a ton of different campuses, but he always says like the power of pre-decision. It's like, why did you go to the gym at 4 a.m.? Well, I pre-decided. Like when I woke up at 3:30, I didn't feel like it, but I had pre-decided that I was showing up. So I showed up. Why did you show up for that hard conversation you were having with that friend? Because I pre-decided. I decided yesterday I was going to have this hard conversation, even if it was awkward, even if there was tension. And everything you just said, it's like that clarity around knowing like God gave you this idea, this seed, and you use the word pull. I love that because I once heard it put, what God is calling you to do, you're going to feel pulled to it, not pushed into it. I mean, you think about, even for me, like I know my worst decisions I've ever made, it's because I felt pushed. I felt like I had a deadline to meet. I felt rushed. It wasn't this magnetic, I can't stop thinking about that. It's this push, like I have to be thinking about this. And I think that's a great litmus test because I can imagine people are thinking like, Mitch, I'm so jealous of you. I wish I had that clarity around what God was calling me to do and what my purpose was. I guess real quick, how would you speak to that person who's like listening to you and this idea and you have such clarity around what you're meant to do? Like for that, even that kid of a mom who's listening and they're in the car right now, like, I want to be like Mitch when I grow up and I want to use this app, but I don't even know what my business should be. What advice would you have for them?
I would say one thing I do well is attract positive energy. And I always try to stay positive. I've had people around me where they're negative. I'm like, hey, you're bringing negative energy. I just kind of say it nicely, try to be as much like Kevin Hart to break the ice and be funny about it, but also, be honest with them and say, hey, let's try to think positively. Let's turn the negatives into positive. My mom used to always say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. Try to say something kind. Proverbs 23:7, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. So like if you think thoughts and behave and shape your reality in a positive way, I think that the idea of kind of the law of attraction, if you bring positive things into your life, if you expel positive energy, all that stuff will come back to you. I think there's a big, especially with the power of just your brain in general, that God gave you the most powerful thing, and a lot of people don't know how to use their brains. Like, if you think negatively, you're going to bring negative energy. So let's try to stay positive. That's what I always try to, even though there's definitely down days and up days in entrepreneurship, it's a roller coaster of all.
Yeah.
But if you learn how to understand that at a young age, and you learn how to think positively, even though you might be picking up poop, if you think positive outcome, the positive outcome is you're making a lot of money. Like I have a little neighbor who's 7 years old, and I told him, hey, I started in this business. My first business was picking up poop. He's like, oh, I would never do that. 2 weeks go by, Scooter's pooping over in the grass, and I go, hey, Large, you want to make some money? He goes, yeah. I like, go pick up Scooter's poop. He goes, okay. Picks it up. I give him $1. He goes over to his mom. He's like, Mom, I just made $1 in 1 minute, and I scratched Grandpa's back for 30 minutes and made $2 last night. So you see just the mindset change, the cause and effect of, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah. It's negative. It smells like poop. It just seems negative. But if you think about the positive outcomes, that some event may look like negative, but you can turn it into positive if you think right and find a way to persuade people to think about the positives. As simple as that.
No, but I think it's even like, but positive thinking, what it does is it retrains your brain to get out of yourself. And I think about even like in scripture, we see like in Acts when the disciples were gathered together when the Holy Spirit came to them in Jerusalem. It's like God will often give you clarity about the next step when you're in a group, like when you're not just by yourself thinking of yourself, but you're thinking of the collective. And like two things there. It's one, it's like oftentimes the best business ideas, the best impactful, past business, like just the best methods of impact are the ones that it's like someone thought about someone other than themselves. What do people need? What is something that maybe like I ran into as a problem, but I'm seeing a lot of people have as a problem. And then the second part of that is humbling yourself to say, like, I am willing to do what I need to serve people. Jesus did that. He washed the disciples' feet, and it was awkward. And they were like, this is not right. This is so weird. But he was willing to do that. And so I love that. I think like often your next revelation is probably on the other side of the next most humble thing that you can do for somebody else.
That is spot on.
My first business idea. I was 7, and I wish I had your app. My parents, they would have these like dinner parties all the time. And I just remember I was talking to all the parents, and I was super young, but I've always been like an 85-year-old at heart. And so I love sitting at the parents' table when my parents would let me and just like listen and ask whatever questions. And they were talking about how expensive, like all of them would come in with their nails done. And they talked about spas. My mom's friends loved going to get massages. And so I was like, And so I was like, if I offer massages to y'all when you came over here, which sounds like so inappropriate looking back, I was like, if I did like a spa thing, would y'all could I make some money? And they were like, sure. And so I opened it was called Spa Un Mois. Not even kidding. It was like, I took French for 12 days and was like, I know the moi means me. So spa for me. So Spa Un Moi. And I got my mom's like most expensive lotions. And I literally just this sounds so weird, but I gave my mom's friends like hand massages and foot massages when they'd come over for dinner parties. But it was epic. Some of them tipped me like $20. I would at the end of each night as a 7-year-old have made like $400. And I didn't even know what to do with that as a 7-year-old. Like going back to now, you think of that, it's like, oh, I'm so above that. Or kids nowadays, they're just too busy to even think about stuff like that. They're too distracted. I was literally just bored. And I was like, we didn't have Netflix. So it was just like, what can I do to take up my time? So also that point, it's like, it's humbling yourself. I'm curious, for you, right now with kind of like along that thread, what would you say are some of the other biggest blockers you think from kids? Is it just like the ease of creating a business? Is it the fear of failure? Is it just being distracted? Like, what do you think are the biggest things plaguing our kids right now from being able to actually think entrepreneurially?
Um, so before I get into that, I think you touched on a very interesting topic. I guess this was kind of a blocker for me. I didn't know how to get started. I hosted the dog wash station and lemonade stands, and then my neighbors were like, "Hey, you want to host?" I asked them, "Hey, I'm hosting these lemonades. I'll host a lemonade stand or a dog wash station for your kids." And that's kind of where I realized that's a big blocker. Like, kids know how to start lemonade stands. They know how to do that. So they called me a glorified babysitter, and they started paying me as a babysitter to host lemonade stands. The kids make money. So the kids make money selling lemonade. And
Well, I
not only
didn't
did they
even
make
think about
money,
that. But yeah, someone has to be watching the kids.
yeah, so they would pay me as a glorified babysitter, more like a business mentor, which you can sign up as a business mentor on the Minor Chores app
Oh,
as an
so
adult.
cool. So cool.
And then that's kind of the big blocker is kids don't know how to start. So if you start with a lemonade stand, for example, we have like little flyers, not flyers, but little lesson plans that the kids can get for their lesson plan. And they'll be like, okay, we had cups, we had the lemonade mix, we have water, we have a jug, we have this, we have that. So we walk them through the basics of business, and they just start to click. And then they're like, oh, so if I started a poop scooping business, I wouldn't really need that much. I might need this, I might need that. And then they just their brains start coming up with these ideas, because kids are the most creative, like, humans on earth.
They
like
are.
Kids literally get brought into board meetings at big companies to come up with interesting ideas. I have a kid who's actually an investor, and his mom, he's been on the ABC version of Shark Tank where they're the judges of pitches.
The
Like,
kids are the
literally,
judges of
kids
pitches?
are judges of
Oh, I bet they're a
ideas.
tough crowd too. They're so honest. Like, that sucks, you know?
Yeah, so they're tough. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to blockers, there's just not knowing how to get started, I think, is one of the biggest. Is parents may not know how to get started for their kids. And that's where I think if they hear about Minor Chores, that's a quick way to do it. Or simply tell your babysitter, be more than a babysitter. Why don't you take my kids out to sell lemonade, or maybe knock on a few doors and try to get a customer on the Minor Chores app so that they can learn how they can just book my kid for trash can cleaning today, which I've got a kid coming over to clean my trash can for $15. It'll take him 10 minutes.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually budgeted $8 on the app, so I posted a chore, and he realized that there aren't many people on the app yet, so he supply and demand. He was like, you know what, I'm going to charge him 15. So he bid on it, and I accepted it. And I was like, all right, that's awesome.
Cool.
Kid's smart. He's going places. So once you get started and you have that hurdle, and I think it's tougher to get started if you're an adult, but if you teach kids at a young age how to get over that roadblock, how to just get that first client, you might get 10 no's. I got 30 no's when I started trying to raise money, and I finally got one, and we've raised almost $1 million now. So it's like, once you get over that roadblock of no's, especially at a young age, like, not everyone's going to want their trash can clean. Okay, whatever. But if I get 5 people and I wash those 5 trash cans and I make $10 per trash can, and it takes me 50 minutes, I just made $1 a minute. So once you get over that hurdle, I mean, you look at the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, there's a survey of 118 of them, 93% had one thing in common. They all started businesses when they were kids. So I think teaching kids how to start a business at a young age, whether it's being a chorepreneur on the Minor Chores app or creating their own slime. A lot of kids that I talked to today, they want to create slime, or hosting lemonade stands, or whatever it is that kids want to create these days. If you get them over that hurdle and you teach them how to get going, and you teach them that, hey, someone saying no doesn't mean that it's end of your job, or you're a failure. You just go on to the next, move on to the next.
That's so good.
So staying positive and getting over that roadblock is huge.
I think that's so important. Like, especially what you said about rejection. I think whether you're 6 or 60, rejection, you don't graduate from it. It stings everybody. And especially with with business, I think not just with business, like, cause I've worked corporate, I've done my own businesses, podcasts, whatever have you. It stings even more when it's your idea. And like, it's something that it was like you created. And so I'm curious for you. I think a mindset a lot of people adopt is, God, if this is from you, doors are just going to open. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeses are just going to come. Oftentimes, it's the opposite. It's like you have an idea, you're faithful to pursue it, and it's closed door after closed door after closed door. So I guess for you, what was the distinction between like what did you hold on to know confirmation wise? Like, I know this was from God. I know I'm having faith to open or to step into this, even though from the outside, it almost looks like the opposite. It looks like I'm getting no after no after no. Like, what did you go back to each time?
Really, that's the whole story. It becomes a cause and effect, full circle. My childhood, like if I was able to do this and earn this much money and learn how to be a young, financially responsible kid, there's got to be a way I can figure this out. I may have to pivot in different directions as we get started. I may have to hire a new app developer. I may fail on 30 pitches and invest over 150K of my own money and almost run out of it. And then I get a call from a guy when I went back to NextEra as a consultant, and I thought I was talking about solar energy. And he said, "Hey, I want to listen to your pitch." I'm like, oh my gosh, is this that calling? Is this my first investor? And within 30 minutes, he's like, yeah, I'll put in 50 grand. I'll see if my brother will.
Wow.
And then from there, then my dad actually brought down the valuation and invested in himself. So I had to lower the valuation, which was a good calling. It kind of stepped me back down from, all right, you got to stay grounded and keep grinding. So there's a lot of different aspects in my life where I was like, is this the right calling? Is this it? But at the end of the day, every morning I woke up excited and I was thinking, all right, if I inspired that one kid, the first day I did a dog wash station, like I can keep inspiring more. I can keep inspiring more. I just need to get the word out there. Keep grinding. Even though I've met billionaires and 100+ millionaires that have said no, I don't think you can scale. I don't think you can do this. I just keep saying, well, I'm going to figure it out. So,
that like keep grinding. I love that because I think it's so, there's something, you know, who Robin Sharma is, he's an awesome writer. If you should read some of his books. He's a great entrepreneur, but he talks about this idea of the Titan's decline. It's basically when people who are super successful, like drinking a little bit too much of that success and they stop doing the things that made them successful. So like his example was this 5-star restaurant in like Spain he went to. And when he went to it, the second year they were open, everything was top notch. It's like they thought of everything and the service was amazing. And then 5 years later, he went back and he was like, the food was still good, but just the little things like they didn't pay attention to, they no longer did because they were like, well, we have enough people coming in. We can stop doing the things that made us successful. They were out of business like 7 years later. And so you think about like going back to why you keep doing that thing in the first place. When God gives you an idea, I think you know it's from God because you love the process so much, because God knows if you love the process, you're going to be committed to the process, whether you fail or you're successful, because that is essentially what leads to long-term success. It's like I remember for me, I played college tennis. Like I love just tennis. So as an outcome of that, by default, you get really good. But even when you get really good, you don't stop practicing because you got really good. Like you just like practicing, so you keep going. And I'm in Samuel right now and reading about David, like with Bathsheba. You think about, like, I was like, okay, so what was different? And what I saw was David always consulted God before any decision. That was the one time he did it. Like he was king, he got a little comfortable. He didn't go to war with the rest, like when most kings did. He got a little comfortable and then Bathsheba happened. And it's like, do you still do the things that made you successful even when you are? Or even when you're not? And so I love how you had that quote to say about like keep grinding, because That's essentially what's going to ensue your success. And I think that's important for every person to know. So all that to say, I know we're coming up on time, but I want to round out. It's cool because my last question I typically ask every guest is, basically like, Jesus talks so much about having childlike faith, and we can learn so much from kids. I think we can learn more from kids than we can learn from most adults. So I'm curious for you, you have this very beautiful, unique perspective of interacting with, the magic that is the minds of so many of our youth right now. What have children recently, in your experience with them in building this app, what have they taught you about God and faith and your relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, they've taught me that life is full of ups and downs. I mean, you can see some kids just in the class today, like they're struggling. You can tell just by their body language. You can tell by this. Their head's down, they're tired or whatever it may be. And then you can see a lot of kids that are excited and just have the joy of the day, and they're bright and glorious and excited for summer. And I think what's God is really trying, I feel like he's talking to me and like, try to inspire those other kids, like try to get into their heads. And I went up to one today. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, I'm Mitch. And in front of the whole class, I try to introduce myself and inspire him and create energy, positive energy that I feel like I had around my family when I was a kid. So I really want to just kind of express that energy to anyone and everyone that I come into contact with and try to bring them joy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jesus, I think when Jesus was on the earth, he was literally inspiring and helping as many people as possible. No matter the outcome, that's what I think we're put on this earth to do, is to help others. And like my mom said, and as Scooter, my dog, she's a golden retriever, our motto is the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Everybody's got to go look at your dog's Instagram. It's so cute.
She's the chief dog officer and the queen of Roger Dean, which is the baseball stadium for the Cardinals, for spring training across the street. She owns that park. Yeah, she's a Frisbee. If there was a national Frisbee league for dogs, I think she would be the starting wide receiver.
Hey, I don't doubt it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She's committed to the process. She just likes the process of Frisbee practice. No, but that's so cool. And it's so important. And again, just to edify all you're doing, I think kids are so impressionable, and that is such an impressionable age to be like impacting them and putting that spirits in them. I think about, for me, entrepreneurship, it's taught me so much about God, and it's built my faith so much. And so for me, like when I see someone who's doing what you're doing, I think not just, wow, what a beautiful thing for kids to learn how to manage money and how to grow businesses, but what a beautiful avenue for them to get to know their creator more. Like when you create, you look just like the image of the ultimate creator. And that's so powerful. And so thank you. How can people find you, find what you're doing, potentially support? Where can they go?
minorchores.com is our website. And then you can go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store and download the app, post a chore. If you don't see any chorepreneurs in the neighborhood, just post a chore. But soon enough, you'll be seeing kids running around. They're getting their own business cards. Whenever they purchase a subscription, we're going to ship out free business cards. And inspire kids. You can follow us on social media, Minor Chores across the board, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. What else is there? We partner with Zigazoo. It's the #1 social media app for kids. And then we're slow rolling it right now, but you'll see us in ads and stuff over the next couple months. So if you do, follow me at What's the Theme on Instagram. We post on there. I post on there a good amount. And then if you download the app, you can connect with me as well on the app. It's kind of like LinkedIn, you connect with people, parents approve the connections. There's a whole safety aspect that wasn't there back in the day. So
I know my parents tuning in, my young moms, they love that, the safety aspect. So that's awesome. Mitch, thank you so much for all you are, for all you're doing. And thank you for shining some light on the show today.
Thank you. This is an awesome show, and I appreciate you very much.
And I hope that this blessed you and encouraged you, reminded you that God gave you a unique light, and it is your job to shine it in this world because we need you to. That being said, if you were blessed by this message and you can think of anybody else that also needs this type of encouragement, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment. It helps me out a lot and helps this message that I do believe God gave my heart to share with the world gets out. I hope you have such an amazing rest of your day.